During the production of the Midnight Library of Baseball, I've written about 2 books turned into films, but I haven't written about what I thought of each film, so I thought it would be fun to do just that. Tonight at the Midnight Library Stadium, taking the field, we have The Natural versus Field of Dreams. You're listening to the Midnight Library of Baseball, where there are no loud noises, no jarring music, only nostalgic, thought-provoking, emotional stories about baseball. I'm Ben Orlando. If you're listening to this and haven't seen one or both films, here's a brief synopsis of each. The Natural. A 19-year-old baseball phenom, Roy Hobbs, sets out to Chicago to try out for the Cubs after his father dies. On the train, he meets a mysterious woman in black, and he meets the Whammer, a Babe Ruth-like character who Hobbs ends up striking out at a fair. At a hotel before tryouts, the mysterious woman in black shoots Hobbs, and 16 years pass before he reappears to play for a pro team called the Knights. When he finally gets a chance to play, the 35-year-old rookie absolutely dominates the game, crushing home runs, going 5 for 5, and catching every ball hit to him in the outfield. But Roy Hobbs is a mystery, hounded by a reporter who knows his secret, and he's also harassed by a bookie who wants Hobbs to take a dive. Hobbs also goes into a slump, which is fixed when a lady in white stands up in the crowd and inspires him. It turns out that this lady in white is his former girlfriend, Iris, and her 16-year-old son is Hobbs' son, but he doesn't know it yet. Eventually, Hobbs is hospitalized and told by a doctor that his stomach is damaged from the bullet that went through him 16 years earlier, and if he plays baseball again, he could die. But it's the big playoff game, so Roy Hobbs decides to play. And he refuses to take a dive. And while his stomach is visibly bleeding through the uniform, he hits a home run that shatters all the lights in the stadium. The final scene is Roy Hobbs playing catch with his son in a wheat field. So that's The Natural. Here's a synopsis for Field of Dreams. Ray Kinsella, his wife Annie, and their little girl Karen live on a farm in Iowa, and the farm isn't doing well. Suddenly, Ray hears a voice that tells him to bulldoze a large swath of his cornfields to build a baseball field with lights and everything. The voice says, if you build it, he will come. Well, first, Shoeless Joe Jackson walks out of the corn, followed by many other ghost players from the past. The voice sends Ray across the country, gathering people and puzzle pieces, until finally the puzzle is fully assembled. But the he in He Will Come is not Shoeless Joe, but actually Ray's father, who used to play baseball before he became a father. And the film ends with Ray playing catch with this younger version of his father, while in the background, an endless stream of car headlights can be seen approaching the field, ready to pay to sit down and watch the ghosts play, which will result in plenty of income to save the farm. I've talked to lots of people about this comparison, which film they like more and why. And people come down on both sides. Really, it's about how you personally connect with the film. But what's the measure in tonight's comparison? For me, it's a combination of how engaged I was and how emotionally connected I was. It might seem like these two measures could be the same, but I think there are many ways to hold my attention, and not all of them have to do with a deep emotional connection. For instance, you can hold my attention with a fireworks display or action sequence, or a nagging question I want to see answered. In The Natural, I was intrigued by the premise, by the question of what happened to Roy Hobbs after he was shot and disappeared for 16 years, and how he would perform as a 35-year-old rookie. I was interested in the baseball, in the historical elements represented in the film, but I never felt like I really cared about what happened to Roy or Iris, his old girlfriend who returns to inspire him. There is, of course, the emotional impact of Roy's dreams being shattered by the shooting, and that hook grabbed me for a while. But Roy didn't give me anything. He remained mostly mysterious, quiet, and focused on himself. He was closed off, wouldn't let anyone in, including the audience. And even when he later opened up to Iris about what happened, that he'd spent a long time in the hospital after the shooting, that he'd lost his confidence, it didn't seem like a good enough reason to keep quiet. Now, that doesn't mean this isn't realistic. There are many, many people who don't talk about themselves, and they have reasons for it. But this also meant that I didn't connect with him in many different ways. Yes, he's been hurt. He has the cards stacked against him, and he wants this clear goal to play, to be remembered as the best ever. But this is the tunnel that he's trapped in, and we're all trapped in. And yes, this is one of the themes, that Roy can't see another purpose to his life until the very end when he learns that he's the father. And then there is a shift, but there's not much time to take in that shift. Contrast this to Ray Kinsella in Field of Dreams, who doesn't ultimately say a whole lot about his father, but it never felt like he was trying to hide the truth. When the moments arose, he'd talk openly about his father to his wife, Annie, or to Terrence Mann. He described the rift between himself and his father, and how his father seemed like a broken man, someone Ray never really got to know. Or at least he didn't get to know the spirited, happier man who was a baseball player. And Ray opened up in other ways. He expressed his feelings and showed his flaws, so that I cared what happened to him. That's another thing. Ray Kinsella expressed himself through words and actions. He's goofy. He's a hippie turned farmer with a quirky wife, and he hears voices in the cornfield. He bulldozes his cornfield so the neighbors think he's crazy. He goes off on hero quests like Don Quixote and tries to kidnap a famous author by pretending to have a gun in his pocket. If you think about telling stories about your significant other at a dinner party, you probably want to tell stories that are endearing, and these stories about Ray Kinsella are endearing. They're funny, odd, bordering insane, but they create a well-rounded character. Roy Hobbs doesn't have much on the endearing side. There is a moment when the players sew lightning patches on their uniforms in hopes that some of Roy's luck rubs off on them. But overall, there aren't many characters connecting in The Natural. Now, there is a bit of lightness and connection in The Natural that comes when the team starts to really play together as a unit. But this obvious synchronization still feels less connective than the physical and vocal displays of the long-dead ball players in Field of Dreams, who complain and shout insults at each other. On the page, it might seem like the players in The Natural get along better. But what comes out in Field of Dreams, in the players' gestures and tones, is this vibe of joy and release, this lightness of being able to joke and insult and banter, while finally, after such a long time, they're able to play a game that meant so much to them. Nothing could make these ghosts happier than to run around, snag a fly ball or grounder, and heckle each other. Another comparison between the films has to do with believability. And even though, despite Roy Hobbs' otherworldly athletic abilities, The Natural is mostly grounded in reality, while Field of Dreams is more magical realism. And yet, I feel like overall, Field of Dreams was more believable, in that I more easily fell into the story without questioning in a way that pulled me out. In The Natural, it doesn't help that from the very start were pulled out of the story by trying to believe 48-year-old Robert Redford is actually a 19-year-old country boy. I'm not sure why casting didn't decide to bring an actual young man for these early scenes, but consciously or not, as I'm watching, my brain is thinking, Robert Redford is nowhere near 19 years old. And this thought, this block, is constantly interfering with my ability to suspend disbelief and sink into the film. There's also this overarching theme of what's important. From the start, Roy Hobbs only cares about breaking records and being known as the best there ever was, a la Ted Williams. And this mentality survives for most of the film, until he decides he wants to be with Iris. It's only in this final game when he learns that Iris's 16-year-old son is his. And maybe there's more to life than baseball records. And I know this takes away from the Hollywood moment, but when Roy Hobbs steps onto the field in that last game, his stomach bleeding, and the doctor telling him that if he plays, he might die, wouldn't he think about his son? Maybe it's not enough time to process the idea that he's a father, but wouldn't knowing he's a father make him not want to die so he could be there for his son, especially since his own father died when he was around the same age? And one more little thing. When Roy hits the home run that smashes through the lights, sparks begin to fly, and all the lights begin to explode. Why would hitting one light make all the lights in the stadium explode? Again, I did enjoy the natural, and it wasn't any one thing that prevented me from deeply connecting with the story and the characters. It was a series of little things here and there that added up to more disconnection. And even though this film was much more realistic, as in grounded in reality, I found Field of Dreams more believable. If you like the show and crave more content, you can become a Patreon member, where you'll have access to additional audio episodes, video interviews, and other articles and images linked to the show. Go to Patreon/Midnight Library of Baseball. And since this is a one-man production, every bit of support helps. You can donate at midnightlibraryofbaseball.com, and you can add reviews on iTunes and Spotify. Okay, back to the show. Ever since I began the Midnight Library of Baseball, I've been wondering why I'm doing this. I used to hate to concede to cliches, as if I was sinking to the lowest level. You've probably done this or heard someone do it recently. The sigh, the grunt, ugh, it's such a cliche, or I'm such a cliche. But really, this notion stops us from seeing truth. Cliches are often just consensus over the course of history about some repetitious aspect of humanity. Really, cliches can connect us. And going back to my original point, when I did the episode on Doc Graham, I heard the voice. And that voice brought me to the truth of what baseball meant to me and my relationship with my father. And when this truth surfaced, I tried hard to push it back down because it seemed like such a cliche. But the more I simply allowed the voice to be heard, the more I accepted the truth. And this is what I want for the Midnight Library of Baseball, this human connection of what baseball means to each of us. Maybe we've strayed. Maybe we've turned our backs on the game for years, decades. But just like that, it can return. The struggle, the sacrifice, the humanity, good or bad, the rough edges and the rounded corners. What baseball meant to Ray Kinsella, what it meant to Terrence Mann and Doc Graham, and to all the unseen people in that long, endless line of cars at the end of the film. That's the lens, the FOD lens through which I try to see the stories I'm researching for every episode. And as I was first thinking about all this, the biggest cliche in my head was, oh my God, my life is like a movie. But of course it is, because movies are based on humans, and humanity is a cliche. The same story again and again. At the same time, Field of Dreams is not the same typical story. It's enormously creative. A world where long-dead professional ball players get another chance to play baseball, but only after an Iowan farmer gets a message from a voice to tear down his corn and build the field. Where are these ghosts coming from? Heaven? Hell? Purgatory? Limbo? We don't know, and we don't have to. All we know is that they're grateful, and that they can only be seen by living humans who truly believe. And in this creative story, everyone, Ray, his wife, his brother-in-law, the dead ball players, Ray's father, Terrence Mann, and Doc Graham, all get second chances in one way or another. And the characters are memorable characters. Kevin Costner really pulls off Ray Kinsella as a man I want to root for and follow from place to place. And James Earl Jones as Terrence Mann, a recluse writer who once loved baseball? Fantastic. And Burt Lancaster as Doc Graham? Fantastic. All very memorable, along with many of the lines. Do we remember any lines from The Natural? Not really. What about Field of Dreams? If you build it, he will come. You were good, rookie. Ease his pain. There's Doc Graham's response to Ray in that small Minnesota town. Quote, I would have liked to have had that chance, just once, to stare down a big league pitcher, to stare him down, and just as he goes into his windup, wink. Make him think you know something he doesn't. That's what I wish for. A chance to squint at the sky so blue it hurts your eyes to look at it. To feel the tingling in your arm as you connect with the ball. To run the bases, stretch a double into a triple, and flop face first into third. Wrap your arms around the bag. That's my wish, Ray Kinsella. That's my wish. And is there enough magic out there in the moonlight to make this dream come true? End quote. Or here's another gem from Graham. Quote, it was like coming this close to your dreams and then watching them brush past you like a stranger in the crowd. End quote. And then, of course, Terrence Mann's speech at the end, delivered by James Earl Jones. Quote, they'll watch the game, and it'll be as if they dipped themselves in magic waters. The memories will be so thick, they'll have to brush them away from their faces. People will come, Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It has been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, it's part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again. End quote. Are there some hokey parts in this speech and the movie? Absolutely. Is it also rose-colored glasses? Absolutely. Tracing baseball back in time shows us violence and racism and sexism, corruption, dishonesty, megalomania. But we can also trace it back on an individual level to memories of playing catch with a father or mother or sibling or best friend, to the excitement of sitting in the stands and eating popcorn or Cracker Jacks and cheering on your team, and to the moments in a game that transcend the game. Partway through the film, Doc Graham turns into his younger self and gets a chance to play baseball like he never had. But just as he's gotten only a taste of his dream, he faces a dilemma. Ray's daughter, Karen, falls off the bleachers and is unconscious, and nobody knows what to do. And there is young Archie Graham in his baggy baseball uniform, standing by the edge of the field. If he crosses the border and steps off the field, he'll turn back into the old doctor who can save a little girl's life. But then he won't be able to go back. In a moment, in this few seconds, we get this visual example of Archibald Graham's entire life and the choice he made and never regret it. Quote, "Son, if I'd only gotten to be a doctor for 5 minutes, now that would have been a tragedy." End quote. It's also the other elements that make up a film that matter. Both soundtracks, Field of Dreams by James Horner and The Natural by Randy Newman, were nominated for an Academy Award. And yes, that's the same Randy Newman who did the Toy Story soundtracks and songs. Again, to me, Horner's soundtrack is more memorable and captures the varied moods of the film, especially the haunting, almost eerie moments during these questions of, is this real or is this fantasy? A really good film not only affects the conscious, but also the unconscious. And that's what Field of Dreams does for me. Sometimes outside of my awareness, all the different parts of the film and these underlying themes of connection and nostalgia slip past my conscious guards and work their way into my emotional center. And again, this is subjective. For other people who don't share my history, my background, and childhood, the arrow might not hit the bullseye. For others, the arrow of The Natural hits the bullseye, where it doesn't for me. But at the end of this overall matchup, for me, Field of Dreams comes out ahead. I'm curious to hear what everyone else thinks, so please share your opinions and stories. And maybe there's another baseball film that really strikes a chord for you. For my recent guest, Jason Turbo, it was Bull Durham. What's yours? If you think this show's worth $1, please donate at the website midnightlibraryofbaseball.com or through Podbean. You can also leave a rating or review on iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast. The show is produced and edited by me, Ben Orlando. Music by Sergei Papkin and Ashot Danielyan. Good night.